Powered by Go-Goat Sports in partnership with TSN, it is episode 73, season 4 of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, presented by our title sponsor, Canadian Club Whiskey. We've got Philadelphia Flyers GM Danny Briere joining us on the podcast today, and likable dude, right? And clearly is trying to set up the Philadelphia Flyers for success. I think there were some who wondered with Danny's personality, he's always smiling, he's always having a good time. You know, how aggressive would a relatively inexperienced GM like Briere be? And we found that out, right, with the three-way trade with Columbus and LA. So looking forward to that.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dregs, because I think that was the perception of Danny at some point in his career.
Yeah.
And then what people found out, that there was a hell of a lot more fire in Danny Briere than people maybe originally understood. And so he's got a big task in front of him, and they're running into it full steam there.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get forward into headlines here, Ray. And now post-Stanley Cup, things are just heating up. We've got the draft radar on the corner, so we'll talk to Briere about that. The Flyers are in the middle of just about everything, and obviously we'll get Briere's feel on how active he may be in the days coming up as well. Insider trading on TSN. Chris Johnson, Pierre LeBrun, and I talked about a number of different interesting tidbits with the trade rumors swirling about. An interesting name out there is Brett Pesce with the Carolina Hurricanes. And I don't want to douse the flames of possibility here. Of course, it's possible that Pesce could get traded. I mean, he's heading into a contract year. He's a 6'3" right shot defenseman. He's really good, but he's good for the Carolina Hurricanes. They'll engage, and probably are, in contract discussions, extensions as of July 1st. But if he were to be available, just based on Carolina not wanting to buck up to whatever the term and money is, you know, we look at Edmonton, we look at Buffalo, we look at all the teams that are in the market for a top 4 defenseman, Ray. Where would he be on your list if he is, in fact, in play?
If I have a top-end offensive guy, Pesce is fantastic to play beside him. Somebody that gives his partner room to roam. Pesce is really good in that fit. My worry would be, I don't know if that's the right word, is that somebody would look at Brett Pesce and view him as a 50-point shutdown guy and all of that. That's not his game.
Yeah.
He, of course, in Carolina, you know, there's only so many minutes there. Because Rod Brindamore uses pretty much the 6-man group across the board, but also because Jacob Slavin's there. And, you know, Slavin's pretty damn good.
Really
but
good.
Pesce's an excellent penalty killer. He's big, like rangy big. Like there's lots of guys that are tall that don't cover the ice. He covers the ice. He's really rangy. Like I could easily see him paired with Rasmus Dahlin.
Yeah.
Like that would be an easy one to go, oh, yeah, I could see that. I could see him in Edmonton as an upgrade on what they have. On the, you know, you got a right side lockdown D. And you could see where that would be really enticing for Edmonton. But Carolina's not going to give him away. And Carolina is they're also not scared to take people to the last day of their contract.
Yeah.
Like there is, you know, they'll get to the point where it will make sense for them or there won't, but he's a good player. I like him a lot.
All right, let's dive a little deeper with the Oilers here. You know, they would obviously have interest. The glaring issue for Edmonton and a lot of cap teams is they don't have the space. They don't have the money to work with. So you can want to add a top 4 defenseman like Brett Pesce. You can want to add a bargain forward like Connor Brown, right? But you're going to have to move out lots of pieces, you know, Cody Ceci, Warren Fogle, Kailer Yamamoto, and that probably isn't enough to get it done. So let's just play in theory here, okay?
Sure.
In theory, if you add a piece like Pesce and you add a piece like Connor Brown, does that vastly improve the Edmonton Oilers, in your opinion?
Yes. Connor Brown's a good player. You're going to have to remember he missed the entire year with ACL surgery. Generally speaking, it takes some time once a player comes back. So that might be a trade or an acquisition if Edmonton or anybody that signs Connor Brown, that Connor Brown starts to pay dividends in the second half of the season. Because look, I've had that surgery. You don't feel great.
No.
You just don't. Even when you're back and you're like, I'm ready, I can do everything. You're kind of like a quarter step away from what you're like, wait a minute, I used to have this pop.
Yeah.
And it's not there. No matter, I mean, he's done nothing, Browns, but rehab since October. You'd think by next October he'd be great. Well, you're just not. It just doesn't work that way. And so, but in the second half of the year, you're looking at an elite penalty killer. He's a really sharp penalty killer. He plays lower in your lineup. He can be, I think he can be a 15-goal guy at this stage in his career, and he's smart. Like you put him on the ice, you don't worry about that position. Edmonton has to move out. Oh, it seems like, $1.10 to bring in $1 right now. Like they're really going to have to grind away to move money out of there. And the one thing they've stayed fast at is like, they don't want to needlessly tie draft picks to moving money out. Like they don't want to, Ken Holland's in the last year of his contract, but he doesn't want to pillage the future.
No.
But there is a point here. You go, we're not that far away. That series with Vegas could have gone another way.
Yeah.
It didn't. They got beat by a better team. But what if it didn't? And can you make that next step with a couple of these moves?
Right. Alex Debrincat, speaking of another forward, we just talked a bit about Connor Brown. There's a market for this guy, and I think we can appreciate why, right? And I believe that, there's lots of reasons why players and families don't want to stay in a certain city or with an organization. I don't feel like this has a ton to do with hockey, unless, of course, as a left winger, he's looking up and seeing Brady Tkachuk and saying, nah, you know what, I'm a top line guy. I deserve to have an opportunity as a top line player. I don't know that that's what's truly motivating him. Maybe he wants to get back to the U.S. I mean, players are entitled to feel how they feel and try and navigate that process contractually when they can. And that's where Alex Debrincat is at. So if you look around the league, I'm sure you can find a parking spot for Alex Debrincat with 24 different teams. Detroit seems to make a lot of sense to me. So is there a team that needs him more than another, or do you like the idea of Detroit?
No, I mean, he's a scorer, but the team that's going to acquire him, like he's obviously a scorer, but the team that's going to acquire him has to have somebody to play with him.
Yeah.
And why that's important is there are some guys that can be independent contractors and create their own offense. Debrincat doesn't do that.
Right.
He can't. His best years, well, shockingly, were with Patrick Kane. So somebody can create, that guy can finish. But if you bring him into a spot and you don't have someone to help create the chance, you might be disappointed because it's going to be a hefty price.
It is
that you're going to pay for Debrincat.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say too about, I keep hearing Detroit and, they've got all these prospects. However, is Ottawa in the prospect boat? I don't think so.
Not anymore.
No, they're in the next stage of that. So you've got to look at their roster and go, which of their young guys would they be willing to move in that deal?
Right.
And that's maybe, I think that would maybe open up a couple of more teams if you sat and really drilled down on it and go, oh, that guy has a 23-year-old centerman, or like somebody in that age range as opposed to another draft pick.
All right, another forward, Victor Olofsson. Right, 28 goals this season. I'm not surprised by that, but his name has been kind of sifting around the trade speculation and whatnot, and it makes sense, right? He's getting pushed by Quinn, he's getting pushed by Turco. this would be a nice piece for a team. And maybe that's part of the transaction that brings Kevin Adams and the Buffalo Sabres back a defenseman, right? I mean, power play guy, he would help.
You know, he's a shooter. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say he's close to a one-trick pony, and
Okay.
that's his shot. But Dregs, we've talked about this before. If teams are looking for 200-foot players only, they're going to have no players on their team.
Good point. Yeah.
Like, what's wrong? Like, when I say that, a one-trick pony, yeah, the one trick is he scores.
Yeah.
It's bloody hard to do. So I think there is a market for a guy like Olofsson. I really do. And the one thing that Kevin Adams they've been really clear on, they're not going to block their young guys' path. You mentioned Peterka and Quinn. That's the path. And what if Olofsson's in the way? They have to open up space for those guys.
Well, he's definitely going to listen. No question about that. All right. How about a thought on Erik Karlsson? Pierre LeBrun lobbed his name back into the mix on insider trading. We know that Mike Greer and the San Jose Sharks obviously are listening and talking to teams. We know that Newport, that represents Erik Karlsson, has had this conversation with San Jose not that long ago. I always believe, Ray, that there is more flexibility in the system, right, in the offseason, because teams aren't locked into the team that they're locked into when you come on a training camp and you're bracing for the regular season. So I feel like, given the year that Karlsson had, this is going to be a fun one to continue to follow if he gets traded, and then where he gets traded to, because that's a big contract in every sense of the deal.
Well, it's really only about that. And so, you know, you would know better than I, Dregs. What percentage of money was San Jose willing to take back at the deadline?
Yeah.
It wasn't as much as, it wasn't
30?
even close.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's more flexibility in the summer. But if the owner says, I'm only willing to pay $2.5 million or $3 million of the 11, well, somebody's got to shoot $8 million.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it all makes sense. Sure, I could see why they'd want to move on from them and all that stuff. And this is like every general manager that takes over a team, as Mike Greer took over from Doug Wilson, as Danny Briere takes over from Chuck Fletcher, there are contracts there that they must stare at and just stare at their computer screen and hoping the longer they stare at them, those contracts disappear.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
It just doesn't work that way. And so, you know, Greer can be as creative as he wants, but it's a really tough spot for him, because at a certain point, the owner's like, wait a minute, you're asking me to pay X number of $1 million for the next, how many years left on that deal? 3 or 4?
I'd have to check. I think 3, but.
Okay, so let's say it's $4 million. You want me to pay this guy $12 million to go play somewhere else? I'm not into that.
I'm not really.
Because that's the equivalent of taking $12 million and throwing it into the street.
Yeah.
So it's, I get it. I get it, sure. But that's going to be a tough deal to consummate.
Those are your headlines. Remember, our interviews on Ray and Dregs this year brought to you by Canadian Club Whiskey. We were asking, are you over beer? Why not try a CC and ginger ale? It's mixed. It's ready in a can. When you're watching the U.S. Open or anything really on TV, meet your cold one. It's time.